used to house the legendary Chez Paree, where he was a regular performer with the Will Maston Trio. Jay Schatz, who owned the nightclub, remembers how Davis would mesmerize audiences.
He attracted everybody. Everybody. Young, old, racial mix, square people, hip people. As I say, he was so multifaceted. If you didn't like his singing, you had to love his dancing. If you loved his dancing, you had to love his comedy.
Fabled for his generosity, Davis was the biggest single contributor to the United Negro College Fund. In April of 1987, suffering from leg problems, and after an evening of performances at the Chicago Theater, he made an appearance at a nightclub operated by longtime friend Milt Trenier to help him overcome some financial difficulties. Trenier says he's still in business today because of Davis.
I love the whole family, and the Treniers.
The man is a giving man. You know, he gave so much, you know, to people that you never hear about it in the papers. You know, you don't hear about it, read about it in the papers or see it on television, but he's always doing for others.
Sammy Davis, Jr., dead at the age of 64. Harry Porterfield, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
And Sammy had just celebrated his 20th wedding anniversary.
Entertainment legend who's playing at the Chicago Theater.
Plus, entertainers talk about getting their start in Chicago at our landmark Chicago Theater, but few paid tribute to the city and her talent the way Sammy Davis Jr. did last night. Harry Porterfield has the story.
In the past 10 years, Milt Trenier has moved his Chicago nightclub 3 times, most recently because of the S-curve and demolition of the building on Lakeshore Drive. Now on Fairbanks Court, he finds himself debt-ridden. To the rescue last night, an old friend of 40 years, dating back to the time Milt performed with his famous brothers, the Treniers. For Sammy Davis Jr., it was both a benefit and a nostalgia trip.
This man, as hard as he worked, and the first thing I did, the office called me back from L.A. Said, Sammy said he'll be there. You don't know how good that made me feel. I love the whole family, and the Treniers, and they have done their material over the years. As a matter of fact, one of the great things that they did, they wrote a song for me because I did it. And they did it. It was their piece of business. Oh, oh, get out the car.
The climax of the evening came when Sammy, obviously fatigued from a full evening of performing at the Chicago Theater, sang a number that mesmerized this audience. Interestingly, the club Davis is helping to save is in the very building where he used to sing as a beginner with the Will Maston Trio more than 40 years ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sammy Davis Jr. Thank you, Sammy. Don't forget Sammy did the Chicago Theater, ladies and gentlemen.
Harry Porterfield, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Sammy Davis Jr. is at the Chicago Theater with Sarah Vaughan through Sunday.
The Will Maston Trio playing back alley clubs. But not so far that he's forgotten those jazz joints or the people who shared the small times with him. And last night, after doing that really big show, he did one for a few very lucky fans and a very old friend.
The love between Sammy Davis Jr. and Milt Trenier goes back more than 40 years, to the days when the Trenier brothers and the Will Maston Trio would play in one hotel, but stay in another, designated for the colored entertainers. Last night, Trenier gave a big star the chance to recapture the intimate feeling of a small audience. Sammy Davis Jr. gave a small nightclub owner the chance to keep his business alive.
I called his office and I said, will you ask Sammy if he'll do me a big favor because I need it. And I'm being honest. I'm a proud man, but yet still I'm saying, hey, when you're hurt, you're hurting.
Trenier was hurt by, of all things, the straightening of the S-curve on Lakeshore Drive. The Lakeshore Hotel was the third location in 10 years for his Chicago Jazz Club. Before the building was finally torn down, Trenier suffered through 2.5 years of construction that drove his customers away. Now, in the fourth location at Ohio and Fairbanks, he needed someone to bring them back.
This man, as hard as he worked, the first thing I did, the office called me back from L.A. said, Sammy said he'll be there. You don't know how good that made me feel, because I asked for a favor, and this man said, I'll be there. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr., ladies and gentlemen.
It is so reminiscent of the kind of thing that we used to do in show business many years ago. And being there, the word now, the optimum word is supportive. To be supportive. We didn't have no words like that in the old days. We just showed up. Cat needs me, man. I'm going to be there.
The thousands who were at Sammy's earlier show at the Chicago Theater know that, as always, he gave that performance his all. The people at Milt Trenier's found out he had plenty left for a friend and a cause he believes in.
You got to have a joint, man, like this. You got to have a place where young, talented people like the two ladies can be showcased properly, where good musicians can play, and you feel that you got friends. I am going to be supportive to this joint as long as it's here, and I will try to do whatever I can to make sure that it's here.
Milt and Sammy did a lot of talking on stage last night. The audience was not the least bit impatient. We knew that he'd sing eventually, and the rest was what made this show an incredible journey back in time. A jam session in a jazz joint with Sammy Davis Jr.
And I feel you so close to me. All my wildest dreams, they all come true. I need no soft lights.
It was really nice. Now, think about this. You see what kind of person Sammy is. Here's how Milt is. He could have charged as much as he wanted for that what do I call it, a door charge last night. He charged $10 per person and just sent it out to a few people on his mailing list, and first come or...
I was going to ask you, who are those lucky people? How did they
People who
happen
made
to know?
reservations. They're on his mailing list. He sent out to about 10% of his mailing list. He didn't want people standing in lines outside because it's not fair. They're not all going to be able to get in. It's a little club, which is what makes it nice.
But you could not have asked or dreamt for someone better, a bigger name than Sammy Davis Jr.
He
to help
enjoyed
out
it
your
too.
club.
You could tell he enjoyed it. How often do you imagine he gets to do something
Nice
like that?
venue
And
like
of course,
that.
he's not there every night, but they do have entertainment there Fridays and Saturdays, and it's very nice.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it.
Still to